Thank you, David, for inviting me. Thank you, everyone, for coming. I thank the panelists also for the wonderful words they just gave us today. Thank you. Um, it's for me today. I decided to tell you my story of as a survivor. Okay, that's good. As a survivor who went through the genocide. So I will share with you some of my experiences of what happened to me. But it's not always easy for a survivor to recall or describe the things you went through during that time. It is painful, but I feel like it's my obligation to tell the story of my family and also to let others keep learning from what we went through as a person who is still alive, and also to honor the memories of our loved ones who were killed simply being Tutsis. And I think that's what I will keep doing for the rest of my life. I'm here, and I think that in the meantime, I do that. Also, it helps me in my healing as well, because the genocide has really done a lot of damages to me. But I think that I'm in a good way now these days. I'm strong enough. I'm courageous to be able to tell my story. In 1994, I was the same age as Yvette. I was 14 years old, and I was living in a small town like this woman they just showed on a clip in Western Province. I had my both parents who were teachers in the community. They were serving the community like everybody else, and I had four siblings. My younger sister was second, and then my three younger brothers, who were the youngest, and the youngest was almost 18 months old. During the genocide, before the genocide, we were just a happy family like everybody else, but at that time in a community where I lived, at that young age, for me, I didn't know much about what was happening, but for me to hear that as Tutsis were discriminated in the community, in the society in Rwanda, it was the hurtful thing for me to see that my father, who was serving as a teacher, teaching everyone, not discriminating anyone, but all of a sudden he's being discriminated against just simply being a Tutsi. It's really sad. It's really hurtful. And we were forced, like many others in the airport, to go into hiding. And I remember this first place we went into hiding. During that time, we had to figure out every place you go to hide. And the first place we went to hide, it was a friend of ours, because we had to go. I remember in our area, in the community area, there were so many people actually who were going to the stadium. And when we were going to the stadium, on our way there, following the crowd, because my mom's instincts came through her. She said, no, you don't have to follow the crowd. And remembering actually the people were going to the stadium, because in Rwanda, majority are Christians, so people were just singing gospel songs. And I have one of them that stuck in my head when the people were just saying, Jesus, help us through these trials and tribulations we are going through. And it was very hard for me to see old people, women and kids leaving their homes and looking at every hill, the house being burned down and destroyed, and then terrified, hearing on the radio everywhere that we have to be killed. It was the hardest thing for me. I couldn't describe the fear I had within and how I felt. It was very, very hard. And I remember on our way there, when my mom instincts came through her that we're supposed to go to a friend and go hiding there. And looking at outside, I saw the killers. They were carrying machetes. They had this huge, big wooden thick with nails on top. Actually, they used to call them Ntampongano in Kinyarwanda, which means no pity for our enemies. And seeing that, I recalled seeing someone in my neighborhood actually who used to make them every time I used to go to school. And I used to wonder what these things are for. And as a kid, I was very, very curious. I asked my dad, but he didn't know himself. He said, I don't know. And remembering that, I just recalled it and saw everybody carrying that. So during that time, the man was making them. Every day I go to school, they were finished. And everyone was buying that. And I kept, when I saw that, I remembered, I said, wow, they made this for them to kill us. And when we went there to that friend of my parents, they took us in the ceiling, and there was no other place they could keep us. And when we were there, I remember hearing people outside how they have to exterminate the Tutsis, from young to old. It was very, very terrifying for me to hear how people have been so, bad to that level of hating people that they have to exterminate them. And being there in the ceiling, as a young kid, it was very, hard for me. But at the same time, also thinking maybe we will get a chance to go back home. But that was not the case. And in those times, people really have changed completely. And sometimes you didn't know who to go to. And I remember when we were there, these people decided not to keep us anymore. And I remember that early in the morning, it was around 5 a.m. And when we left the home, when they told us you have to leave and go find another place to hide. And when we were in the bushes, it was around the sorghum plantation around the river. And I heard this crowd of people, around and cutting the bushes and saying, we're going to kill you so badly. Show yourselves now, come out, cockroaches and all that. And, they had all these names they were calling us. And my dad was really, really, I could see he was changed. As a kid, you always want to see your dad really strong. And at that moment, he wasn't. So, and my paternal aunt was with us at that time because the rest of the other family members were in different places. And my mom just looked all of us and said, keep praying. That's the only word she could tell us. And what we did, we just pray within our hearts. So, and when we came out of the bushes, my aunt was kind of scared. And when she turned around on the other side, they killed her. So later on, my siblings told me that they saw what happened, how they killed her. But we didn't see that because we were just all of us moving. And I remember that how the people looked. They were very, very terrifying. Actually, they were wearing banana leaves around their waist and carrying the machetes and those big, wooden thick in their heads. And it was very, very hard for me to observe how people have really, really changed, and they are all around looking the other human beings to kill them. And I remember at that time, it was during the day, and we had to go to figure out some other place to hide. And that incident, it was very terrifying, even though they didn't, kill us, but they killed my aunt. But we were thinking that probably we're going to be killed some other place. And we hit in really, really difficult circumstances. And another place I remember, we kept going, and when my dad was followed and when we were hiding in the ceiling, and to that place, one of the hardest things for me to hear being in the ceiling is to hear that how people were so happy that they have murdered people and they were rewarding themselves. And I remember when we were sitting in the ceiling, these killers came down and they were walking around and saying how many people they have murdered. I couldn't believe, saying that they were happy that they have murdered my dad, whom they have been following after they found us. And it was, as a kid, as you can imagine, hearing that your dad is killed, simply being who, just a Tutsi, was the hardest thing for me to hear. And I remember it was myself and my mom, we kept comforting each other, and the rest of my siblings were, young. Of course, they didn't hear that, but we kept comforting each other. That's the only thing we could do, but we were waiting for our turn. So, and I remember another place at the time where we went to hide. And to show you how people have changed, but some other people were also good. And I remember this place, my mom was trying to take us to wherever she can take us. We were going through the bushes, it was rainy. And I remember this place we went, and my mom knocked the door. It was during the night. And when she knocked the door to that woman's house, actually, she was part of the killing. Her husband was at the roadblock killing people during the night. So, and when we knocked the door and we kept begging, the woman refused to open the door. And I remember the kids inside screaming and begging her, please, mom, can you help our teacher? Actually, my mom used to teach those kids. That's why they were begging their mom to open for us. And at that moment, I really was touched by how kind these kids have been, and the parent was really unkind. But because of the parent begging for their mom, so she allowed us to go in the house. But we were so thankful, and it was in those times we had been like going through the bushes. We were so hungry, we didn't eat for a long time, and it was really, really painful. And I remember another place, because we went to several places. And in this particular place, when we were found, by killers, my mom was taken by those killers. Actually, they were thinking that she can offer something so that they can leave us, even though that's what they were saying. But it was just to kind of like keep taking her to places whenever they want. They can kill her whenever they want to. And the rest of us, they left us to where we were, and they took her with my younger brother, because she was carrying my younger brother the whole time because he was very young. And when I was hearing this mom talking about her kids, and my mom was, like the same, like her, carrying her own kids and not knowing what to do. And I remember when we were there, we didn't know what to do, so we didn't know whether our mom will survive. And later on, when we kept searching, actually later on, the man who was hiding us refused to keep us any longer. He said, no, you have to go and find your mom. So we were able to find her. So we managed to be able to find her. So when we got to a place where they left her, waiting whenever time they want, they will kill her. Actually, throughout that day, they have been taking her to several, places. Everybody, thinking when they are going to kill her, whenever, it was very, very bad. And when we got there, these killers have already seen that my brothers were still alive. And in those times, to see a man, even a little boy, still alive, it was almost like they've never done anything. And they said, we are going to kill the boys, and then the rest of the girls, we're going to do whatever, later on, whenever we want to. And I remember at that time, when they came to where we were, the man who came actually with the killers to kill my brothers was somebody who grew up with my mom. My grandfather has offered the land where they lived. Actually, his parents lived for those years. That means they were very, very good friends for many, many years. And he came, with the killers, which was very, even I imagine someone like him coming and say he's going to do that. And I remember, as you can see, this mom here, my mom was, it was very, very painful for her. She was begging for all of us to be taken, be killed, and all of us were begging to be taken and be killed all of us at the same time. But these killers have decided what they wanted to do. Yeah, and they wanted to kill my brothers first. And I remember when we begged them and they refused, and They snatched my brothers and took them to our burn house and came back talking how they have killed them. It was the hardest thing for me and my mom to deal with, and my sister. We kind of lost it, and begging to be killed. In those times when you see something like that happens, you don't want to be alive anymore because you don't know what they're going to do to you. And the only thing we could do was just keep, being strong and be able to keep hiding it. We didn't know whether we were going to survive. And I remember this place also we went to hide in this particular place. And this man was part of the killing. And the woman was kind. But sometimes you find somebody in the house who is kind, and the other person was horrible, terrible. And when we were there, this man came back in the house with a killer, actually who was having a sword, carrying a sword, and who looks like he has murdered many, many people everywhere. And he looked, even up to this time, I could see the image of how he looked like. It's like a picture in my head. I remember somehow, I don't know, one went through his mind, he snatched me from everyone. And as you know, during the genocide, rape was used as a weapon to women in the country. Most of the women, a lot of women survivors have been raped, and some of them live with HIV, others live with disabilities. From at that time, some of them have been murdered right away. He's, as he snatched me from everyone, and everyone, kept begging, if you want to kill all of us right away on the spot. And he refused, and the man who was there actually didn't even stop him to do that. And I remember when he just, dragged me on the street and beat me with a sword around my body. I was bleeding around and bruising. And of course, I was screaming a lot. And unfortunately, without going into details, and where he took me and all that, so I was raped by him, like what happened to many other women. It was, I didn't want to leave anymore after that happened to me. The only thing, I was waiting for anybody to kill me on the street while I was walking on the street. And when you survive, something happened, and you don't know what's going to happen. And I managed myself to go back to where my mom was, and she took care of my injuries and the woman there. So it was the hardest thing as a mom to see, and losing her beloved kids and seeing her daughter, what happened to her. It was the hardest pain she can have within herself, more than actually me. We kept hiding, and fortunately, a good, kind-hearted person in the Muslim community, where we actually not far from where we grew up, and they hid us until the country was liberated by the RPF, and then right after the genocide, with everything you went through and finding out many of your family members have been murdered, and you are and everything that happened to you, I felt like crushed in my soul, my spirit, and my emotionally, psychologically. I didn't even know that I would be a very functioning person, being able to do anything in my life anymore. But thankfully that gradually, that with the help of also my mom, who has been very strong and supportive, but I am so fortunate because not so many who have parents, like Yvette doesn't have parents. So at least I've been nearby her throughout the whole time to encourage me to live and be strong. And that helped me so much, and not being able, carry any anger or hatred towards the people who have done that to me, and that helped a lot. And after also going through the trials and within and the pain, later on I found that I contracted HIV as a result of rape. And that was also another difficult thing to live with, but I had to keep striving to live. And as you know, not everybody has the same strength to live, and because some survivors still now still carry that pain within themselves and couldn't be able even to describe their painful memories. But I think that for me, I feel that I needed to also keep, talking what happened to even those who cannot talk about their stories. So at least they can hear themselves in my story as I describe it. And it was throughout the journey for me, I kept reminding myself that I should not give up on hope. And hope, one of the mantras that I created, that I live with on a every day in my life, is that no matter what circumstances you may face in your life, you never lose hope. For losing hope is the beginning of your own self-defeat. Another thing is, I keep reminding myself, is one of the quote from Nelson Mandela, when I said resentment is like drinking poison and hoping that it will kill somebody else. And that reminds me also to keep do the right thing and keep being able to live well, so that I can help my community, contributing to my community, to the healing of our community. Thank you very much.